what I do and what I'm getting up to in my PhD is experiential. And I think that's often underlooked for many people pursuing their doctorate and like what's entailed, you know. I just said, you know, in this video too. Because, you know, you got to play these games and do a good job of them. And you got to be like in the mix of the streaming sort of gaming universe, I suppose, for like want of a better term. And trying to get good at the current games and stuff is a challenge in and of itself. You see many gamers are great at the game that they play, but they might only be great at a certain point of that game's growth and franchise. So I was actually thinking about something in the back of my mind about the sort of the ontology and epistemology, just to use big words and forgetting what they really mean, of elite gaming and how we know what eliteness is, right? And there was this temptation to think, oh, the top percentile of players. And you wouldn't be necessarily wrong if you thought that. Another way of thinking about it for me was to suggest, outside of the top percentile of players, based on whatever metric that you wanted to use, is this temporal element of where the game in fact is, right? So let's have a look at, let me just show you an example, right? So I'm going to type in American football, and I'm going to type in the year, I don't know, let's just say 1980. Now let's just look at NFL in the 80s, right? Now, why NFL in the 80s instead of a video game? Well, it's going to become a lot more apparent if I give you the video game example. But now let's look at American football in the year 2020 and just look at the kind of pictures and stuff that come up. And you can say, well, Gaz, like, I just see football. But the difference is in what you don't really see. Huh? Well, I propose to you that several things have happened in American football in that 40-year period, right? In that generation. Everything from rules to technology to tactics to the players themselves, how they're built and stuff. So rather than saying the top percentile of players, because what happens if you have players from the 80s and players from the 2020s and you want to do a comparison or whatever? Well, we know that they're playing the same game, but the game ain't the same, right? Right? You can still compare them. It's kind of like Mike Tyson in boxing and whoever he's going to be versing, the celebrity, right? That ain't no diss. It just slipped my mind. So, what am I getting at? It's just simply to suggest that there's a temporal element here that should be considered when you're thinking about elite gaming. And that time element helped me further refine my concept of what it means to be elite in elite games and elite gaming. And so I'll just come out and say it. We can kind of know elite gaming a little bit better and a little bit easier if we consider it, and I'll just pull up a slide for it, if we consider it as through this time element. So I'm at Charles Darwin University, and most of you should know that Charles Darwin was a driving force in this theory of evolution. Yeah? And in this theory of evolution, there's also a chronological element. And at a certain point in time, the conditions are going to be so. And in situ there, certain species and certain members of species will be the top of that at that time, right? The apex of that evolutionary curve and point in history. So this eliteness as a temporal factor indicative of the subject's, I'm just going to say, capacitance, and typing's going to be horrible, for its apex at an evolutionary juncture, right? What a flippin' sentence. Gross. And there's got to be a much better way of saying what I'm trying to say here. But basically, just as games have patches and versions and grow and change, and all the computers and everything around it that we use and inputs and things like this, right, all grow and change. Wrecked rival gas. No, don't destroy reality. So is it that the players and everything will be. And so to know elite gaming is to effectively suggest, like in my mind, that we got to be thinking kind of like evolution, kind of like in terms. Because some players of some games, and you see this in speedrunning too, I think to the Hades 1 speedruns that I do, where they say, well, version 1.37 of the game is the agreed upon version for the speedrun category or whatever, and you played on that version, so we're going to consider you within that context. And here you are, you're the fastest on PlayStation 5, 40 heat all weapons, so here's your status. But if it was just version 1, maybe conditions and everything were different in version 1, right? And so what it meant to be elite in version 1 might not be the same as in version 1.37, to take this Hades example. In Hades 2 that's come out, right, early access now, I don't have it, I'm not playing it, waiting for the game to come out. My preference would be to play on PlayStation 5 and get the special art book like they did with Hades 1, whether they do that or not. I don't know, that's beyond me. I wish they'd just release like a collector's edition with like a vinyl, but that's all beyond me, not my decision. In Hades 2, I might just be trash. Why? Because that's a different iteration of the game. It's a different game, different version, different state, right? So if video games evolve, if players evolve, if we're all evolving and stuff, you should consider things within this sort of chronological temporal domain and, you know, version of games and things like this. And that doesn't mean to say that, like, let's take Counter-Strike as an example. Someone was great at Counter-Strike Source 1.6, but not Counter-Strike 2 with all the guns and selling of skins and all this kind of stuff, right? Let's just say someone's trash at that. The chances of them being trash at that, though, is pretty slim because of something that I thought of earlier based on my experience playing Brute Force, which was transferable skills in gaming. But before I digress any further, let's just stick on this point. Doesn't mean to say if you're only good at one version, wouldn't be good at another. Doesn't mean to say that you're elite at one, then you're not elite there. This kind of when and where eliteness is a sort of status question, more of a sociological, anthropological, maybe even psychological question of how we all behave in the states of play, right? But one's gaming status, your achievements, your points, how big your Steam library backlog is, what games you've beaten and stuff, are all kind of impactful and factors for the type of person you are and how you will be seen and received, right? You know, culturally, Taylor Swift wants to make a song about getting touched up while someone's playing GTA or whatever the lyric goes. Well, I didn't play a lot of GTA, so whatever that criticism is of that obviously doesn't apply to me as a person. I can't identify with that, and I can't be identified with that. But there's probably a whole sea of people out there who could be identified with that. And, you know, you could say in the lyrical sense, it's for that mass market appeal or whatever. I don't know, I'm not in the mind of Taylor. But it is to illustrate, I only bring this up to illustrate the point that, like, your games that you play are an expression of yourself. And that's you playing. That's you playing. So if you were a child and you were like, murder maniac is how I want to play, some people might be concerned with that. But as an adult, you can be murder maniac just fine, right? No one cares. You might be morbidly obese and you can't leave the house, so just let them play murder maniac. That's not to say that those type of games have any kind of negative cognitive or behavioral consequences definitively. It's just to say and to illustrate the point that even myself, I play violent games. I'm not a violent person. Games you play are an expression of your own play and your own exploration in that play. And that's fine. It's kind of like food. You might eat spicy food someday. One day someone might see you eat a curry and they'll be like, I didn't know that he was Hindu. And it's like, you saw me eat a curry once, pal. You know what I mean? Don't judge me for all of it. I'm just going doing my Anthony Bourdain culinary exploration. All right, so I've ranted enough about that. Let's talk about the week 9 recap. So there's a distinction. You see week 9, it's week 9 of the stream, but it's actually week 7 of the PhD, right? So my PhD, these are the things that we managed to like tick off this week. On the Sunday, we got confirmation of the UCI certificate being complete. I wanted to roll that forward for a Monday accomplishment because I was still getting emails on the Monday saying like you're getting grades in and stuff, but I had done enough to pass and we got that cert. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick and find it so we can show you in this video. We're going to submit this as part of our application for our second scholarship, right? But yeah, we smashed that out with UCI, which was great. And you get out of it what you put into it, right? I know it's easy peasy, but I enjoyed it. And this is our assignment where we suggested that we would do an esports org focused on Olympic level esports. We inquired about the stipend this week, which is a second scholarship. That's the one where you get a little bit of money every week, yeah, and it helps you keep the lights on. I was under the expectation that I could get one of these, all right? So when I didn't get one, I was confused and upset about it, naturally so. Only because I was under the expectation. It's all about expectation management, guys, all right? And so I think I can get one, and everyone I've spoken to agrees that I'm worthy. Whether or not we get one or not because of how it's all set up, we don't know. It's up to the university to decide. The only thing that I can do is put my hand up a second time. So I found out that it was available, and I actually thought it would be available much later on than what it is, but it's come early. And basically, I fill in a form, and then I give them additional supporting evidence. So I'm not sure what additional supporting evidence that I can give them. But I guess I'll just share the UCI cert. Maybe I can get a reference from somebody else. Because we've got a new supervisory team coming in, I'm going to see if I can get a statement from the supervisory team supporting me to get that scholarship. And I'm going to also suggest the work and everything that I've been doing in the 7 weeks of this PhD, the progress that I've made in games and my work ethic and all this stuff as the reason why I should be considered for stipend. But that doesn't mean that we're going to get one, right? Doesn't mean it. There's all these different factors, and sometimes in life you just don't get what you want. Sometimes it's just not for you, and that's okay. And then we also got an email about joining the student council. That was an interesting one. I don't know if it was generic or targeted, because it was written as if it was targeted, but, you know, it goes out, so it could just be generic. I still am willing to put my hand up. Anything that I can do to help my local university, I'm going to do, obviously. Like, I've been in news before. I've repped the university before. I do what I can, lead by example where I can. And it's a lifelong thing that you do, right? Vote with your feet, so on and so forth. I'm here in the community. I'm around, which is more than what many other people can say. And I've been coming and going and trying to do my piece here for 15 years. And whether or not people care or recognize it doesn't really matter, because it's just the nature of this Darwin Northern Territory thing, you know what I mean? Lots of southerners and tourists and blow-ins come in, and then they go in their 5-year period, they get their experience, and they talk themselves up to the moon. They make all these decisions that affect us locally here, and they just go and retire once they've got their several 100,000, you know, and all their clout. Obviously, they're trying to help and all this stuff, but there's a huge difference, when someone goes, I'm gonna stick around and die in this place and do all this kind of stuff, versus, oh, I was just in this time of my life and I just applied myself there and that was it. Now I'm bailing out. But, thank you very much to everyone who's come here, because it can't be done without you. And the decision to stay here and all this stuff is, you know, for many people, they don't have the choice to leave, so they just try to glow it up. For me, I can go, I can do anything I want whenever I want to. So, me choosing to be here and allocate my time here instead of some other fancy pants place, or go on and being an international student in America for a change, is just on my own volition. So, everything that comes my way, you reap what you sow. So, can't blame anyone or complain too hard or make it someone else's fault. When you're the leader, you take ownership and responsibility for your results and what's happening. And for those kind of reasons and how I think and what I can do, I think I'd be a valuable addition to this student council. Also, like, my power level and what I'm actually capable of doing is insane. So let's just see whether or not they need a mover and shaker or get something done, or if they just need someone to be a part of the team and listen in and help those who are trying to get their stripes and experience up, just be a positive guiding influence, And speaking of giving back, I did hear about an opportunity. I saw it on the job advertisement websites where you could apply to help in the tertiary enabling program. So that's like a program where if you flunked out of high school or whatever, but you still want to go to university, you think you got a bright spark in there, but you just need some support, to fill in the gaps or maybe get your confidence up. I did that program when I was younger, yeah, and to give back to that program would be pretty sweet. All the time in the world throughout my career to do that, obviously, but I did see the opportunity there. And I'm also cognizant of the fact that the opportunities I take are opportunities that are taken from someone else. And I try to minimize that where possible. Now, I'm not about not getting mine, but it's about not being greedy and about being, again, cognizant of all the stuff that you got that other people don't got, that they wish they had, So the student council app came through and I just put my hand up. Let's just see what happens with that. Let's talk about gaming. Helldivers mid. Helldivers is mid. Yeah, the game's just mid. It's like 1/3 of a game. And I'm obviously high level. I've had all my fun and I've done all this stuff. My main criticisms are, I don't see the end game. I don't know what it's about. And playing with pugs and stuff is wearing me down. Too many experiences where players just aren't skilled enough for the difficulty they're doing. Or too many experiences where players are playing and I don't want to play that way. So I'll give you some examples. Like, I played level 9 dive, we did the mission, we got to the end, the Pelican was there, no enemies, all you had to do, bug mission, all you had to do was just get on the Pelican. A dude calls down a resupply in a tactically unsafe space, playing with another guy who's got an ammo backpack and he's just giving everyone ammo, right? So he sees the resupply, he runs to it, he tops up his backpack. I get ammo, the guy who calls ammo gets ammo, and the resupply guy takes 2 ammo, so that's 4 ammos in total. He takes the ammos, and then by the time he's taken them, the other guy finally arrives and he gives ammo to that guy, and so everything's been divvied out. But the host of that match saw the ammo guy take more ammo and then just lost it. And so that's not how you play the game and all this kind of stuff. And got kicked from the match and couldn't complete and couldn't get any rewards, even though we participated in that match. And that was like a disappointing experience. But there are other disappointing experiences that happen on level 9 dives outside of getting trolled or people disagreeing with how you play. So whether or not it's like arbitrary rules that aren't consistent with the experience that you've had over hundreds of hours of play, or it's unskilled players, or if it's players who play frivolously, so that's to say, like, complete loss of lives, or just wanting to explore the entire map and all the POIs like it's a trivial mission or whatever, rather than doing the objectives, or just disorganized play that leads to sort of catastrophic consequences being overrun. because you don't have concentration of firepower, or too many continuous deaths, too many patrols, all this kind of stuff, and it's like after a while you just get tired of it. But that said though, we got to play with some level 150 players, and those level 150 players could just they just do the whole mission on their own, right? They're just like that skilled. And it made me think, made me reflect, perhaps there's this point where I'm at where I need to start being able to carry the whole squad or do the whole mission. But the thing is, to do that, you have to do your own mission. And when you do your own lobby or whatever, people join your game, players come in and then they try to take over, and then they have opinions, and then they say, like what we did on a level 4 mission with Subpar Johnson, just trying to do some farming, right? So he can just get exposure to the game. And it's like all the other players died too much, and then they wouldn't have enough lives based on their play to that point to successfully go and explore the rest of the map and come back and survive a 3-minute extraction. So we called the extraction early so we could complete the mission with all divers. And that's how I wanted to play. And then the rest of the squad didn't agree. And it's like, I guess I'm just playing the game wrong. And I guess I don't belong in the game if the way that I play and the views that I hold don't conform with the rest of the player base. For example, the entire player base disagrees with a PlayStation Network account linking for player safety. I think it's a wonderful idea, right? I think the community management was managed poorly over it. Nobody else seems to think that. So Helldivers is mid. All the expansions and the guns and stuff were all mid. So my Helldivers play, what I'm going to do from this point forward is I'm only going to play casually. I'm going to try to do my high level dives, right? But if I can't do them, I don't care, because there's no end game. So whatever is it for? At least Destiny 2 is better in that respect. Not that I play Destiny 2, but if I was to play a game and I'm looking for an alternative to Helldivers 2, I'd probably just play Destiny. But we'll just see what goes down and see what the direction of the game is moving forward. My final say on the whole PlayStation matter is that if I was on the board at PlayStation, I would be trying to minimize my interactions with Steam. In fact, I wouldn't be working with Steam anymore. I would be trying to tee up some deals with like Amazon or somebody, or maybe even trying to have a détente with Xbox for server space and so on and so forth, or even just expanding the PlayStation Network and expanding the PlayStation Store, having my own launcher and stuff, because of Helldivers being the most popular action game and then getting decimated over PC players organized and rallied around Steam and Reddit and stuff is just unacceptable from my point of view at Sony. Like, don't underestimate Sony. But you know what? I ain't working at Sony. That ain't for me to decide. Let's just see what they're going to do. More than likely what they're going to do is just roll over and say, can't beat them, join them, and like compromise. Let's just keep the money flowing. Don't think too much about it. Let's go on a holiday on a yacht. And again, who cares? Doesn't even matter. What does matter though is just the game itself, and the game itself so far is mid. Even for elite performance, because it's like pay to win in a way. Get the right gun, just know how the mission is done, and the game's too janky to be consistent enough, in my opinion. And the only difficulty is taking away things from the game and expecting you to do more with less, which is like whatever. That's exactly the same as just giving enemies more HP for difficulty. It's like, whatever. The second thing is PGA Tour, all right, for games this week. So we just started PGA Tour yesterday. It's a fun game. Golfing is interesting. All I want to say is that apparently in my hometown, we've got a world-class professional level golfing simulator for virtual golf, digitized golf, right? And it's a game. And when you consider that, with how we've got the world-class racing simulators here too, it's like there's a potential for my PhD and my study to go down the simulator route and look at esports or whatever in terms of just like traditional sports going but that's to be computerized, right? And golf is sick, and so is motorsport racing, right? So I just dabble in a little bit of PGA Tour right there. And then the third thing is brute force is good, right? We played brute force. If you don't know what brute force is, it's this ancient-ass game. Let me see if I can get a video of when we played it. Just going to scroll real quick. It takes a while for these files to load, so let's just see here. The date is the 10th today, so I played it 2 days ago on the 8th, maybe here. No, this is just be Helldivers. Okay. This one? Yeah, so this is some brute force footage here, right? And the janky cutscenes and stuff. But what was interesting about this game is everyone reported this game as being really hard as a kid. Maybe the game's just super easy as an adult. One of my viewers said something interesting, which is that all the time that I spent in, Subpar Johnson says in the recap, the VOD that he had lasagna. But one of my viewers said that perhaps the 200 hours that I spent in Helldivers has prepared me to be a better player of this game. And that's why I can just cruise through it, you know, and the fact that the game is much, much, much simpler, but also much, much, much more consistent. It's not a fair comparison, right? It's a silly comparison. But I had fun playing this game, right? More fun playing this game than Helldivers, and it was great to beat this game in 2 days. It was actually sick. And basically, the reason why I bring it up is because, again, it's to suggest like in Elite play that one concept that I feel should be acceptable in Elite play is a player of a game who isn't necessarily of games that isn't necessarily a god at all games, but is just like proficient at everything. You know, like just give this person a controller or any input, any title, and they're going to play all right. They're going to be able just fully competent, fully competent, right? Because think about it, you could have an elite special forces soldier who pick up any gun, do any kind of thing or whatever, but they might not be a veteran or battle hardened or whatever, or they might just be in the training, but they can just do it and perform it, and their role is just, they could just literally be a reserve force, and all they ever got to do is just sit there all day and just wait for their number to be called. So what I'm trying to say is that there could just be really, really great players out there of all different games, but they're only ever getting, you know, 6 to 7 in terms of total, out of 10, out of total skill. But they can do that out of 6 to 7 out of total games, if that makes sense. Anyway, so I just enjoyed that. It was fun to explore. The stream is an interesting one, right? So let's talk about the stream real quick. The three things are, we might move the stream setup. We've got 3 months of full-time streaming left to do on Kick before our 2,000 hours is hit, and then we're going to consider where we're going to go next. And then finally, the viewership has been very odd. So what I mean by very odd viewership and 3 months left is, let's see if we can have our stream stats up, right? So it says here that we've got an average of 8 viewers, so things are moving up. And then some days, like, we can have anywhere from like 10 to 20 viewers, right? And I know that's not 10 to 20 chatters. It's just maybe like, it's probably just like 6 people. And if 6 people all count as 2 views, then, you know, that's going to be 12. And then whoever else has had me opened up, or maybe myself, I might have myself open up somewhere on my computer by accident or something that I forgot. See, because I've got all these other windows open here. I'm not trying to viewbot myself or do anything like that. You know, it's like just a habit of computer use. Nonetheless, though, our total hours are 1272, and we need 2,000. And I feel like that's the equivalent of like 1 year's full time of being around on the platform, and so on. Now, I don't have this. It's on my phone, right? So just forgive me while I pull it up, because I don't want to actually share it on the stream and tell you who the streamer is. But they're an Australian streamer, and let's just say that they were in the top 100 streamers of Kick, which is a huge accomplishment. And they're in the top, also in the top 100 for English language, yeah. And their total watch hours are 10 times mine. Their total peak viewers is 100 times mine, and the average viewers is 100 times mine too, right? So I kind of scale down from that to being like 1% of what that streamer is. Why does this matter? Why am I bringing it up? It's because that's a streamer who's a successful streamer that did and had everything going largely right for them to placed where they placed. Now, for me, I did everything largely wrong, and I'm not even trying to participate in that thing. I'm just trying to be here and do my own thing, right? And it's a very strange situation to be in, because you can't help but feel like the negative repercussions of being a small streamer just by virtue of being it. It's like if you're going to do an ethnographic study of poverty and you needed to be situated in the poverty, you're going to be affected by that. And it's the same, I'm still affected by being a small streamer. And that's what I'm trying to be. I'm not trying to be a big streamer, because the big streamer is only indicative of the top 1%, right? The elite of the stream world. And that's not something that I can be. And it's not something that I can be due to a wide range of sociological factors, a wide range of things. I need a lot of luck, I need a lot of support, I need a lot of people, I need a lot of resources, things that are not available to me, that statistically won't ever make it to me, and so on. And I'm okay with that, because I'm at where I'm at and I'm doing what I'm doing. Yeah, what I'm doing is a dream for many people to be able to do. There are many people who have a lot more than me in stream terms who can't do what I do. If that makes sense? They don't get to play video games all day long. They don't get to live a lifestyle like what I get to live and have the quality of life that I get to have. So I'm supremely privileged in a lot of ways, right? And I respect that. That's why I'm happy with what I got, and I'm happy to have a really small community, and I'm happy, like, how small is the community? You know, basically, like I said, we got 6 people, and there's another 9 who are offline, but like usually the number is about 5, you know what I mean? 5 people who are around who might respond or whatever during the day. And we got, it says 3 viewers right now as I do this, and that's good. That's what it's all about, you know. Because there's a focus for me to be part of the majority in this exercise, rather than be a minority in the top, which is just so bizarre to reconcile, because you should be, the whole exercise is about trying to get up there and do all that kind of stuff, and that's just not what I'm about. And the reason why I'm not about it is because I'm of the opinion that I'm not going to make it anyway. So don't put stock into things that can't be done. You know, look at the things that you can do and do those things, and make it that way. And if it's going to be in your stars or whatever, then you're going to get there. So the recap is basically, we've got 3 months left full time. Viewership is really odd because it keeps going up despite me trying to stay small, right? And then we might be moving the streaming setup, because as much as I like being in this room and everything like that, I miss the couch, I miss the TV, I miss being able to just let the dogs out real easy on the balcony and stuff, and so on. But it's good to be in a room, in a smaller room, and do a smaller room stream, and to do the green screen stream and all this stuff. It's just really interesting. There is a couple of other things that we do have to talk about, though, outside of that, and it's to do with the confirmation of candidature. Right, so let's just skip ahead and do this. I haven't finished my Gantt chart, but I want to talk through it. So there's 12 items. First is project initiation. Then we're trying to do the confirmation of candidature, which is right now. Then after that, we do ethics. And then concurrently, we do the gaming, streaming, and research. And so at this point, all year round this year, my goal is to do the literature review and theory development. That's my plan. Academically, scholarly speaking, that's what I want to be looking at. And I've got to produce the season 3 all this year. All right. And then in the season 3 production, that is like doing this stream, doing all this stuff. Yeah. Showing people my gameplay and having a virtual third space for us to be. And then finally, the exploration of games and communities. That's just also an extension of playing the games, being around, looking at this, that, and the other. So for season 3, we might very well be back on Twitch by the time in this season, right? Then in the second year, in 2025, I want to do all my interviews, my surveys, and all my footage review. Once I have ethical approval to do all of that, to get my data. I've got professional development to do, so every year I try to do a course if I can pull off doing a course. And as part of the PhD, you got to present at conferences. So I found a conference that I like, that I want to participate in and be a contributor to. And every academic has to publish. So I'm just thinking about what I will publish and where, all in due time. So that means next year, new seasons, new PhD confirmations, new drafts will need to be coming out, as well as the production and the gaming, right, of playing and trying to stay good. And then there's ethics and supervisor meetings. And then finally, in the third year, what I'm thinking is I will do all the final stream artifact editing. So that's to say, what digital proofs and what digital artifacts and physical artifacts that surround elite gaming performance, live streaming, and popular culture, and this stream. What are we going to throw away? What are we going to keep? What montages are we going to make? What docu-series style thing are we going to try to produce? What is the exhibition that's a room that someone's going to walk in and see a deconstructed stream and go, if you put this all together, you can stream, and then you could be very best at Apex Legends or League of Legends or whatever game Riot comes out with or whatever, right? Then finally, professional development that year, again, a course, a conference, a publication. Punch out the stream, punch out the PhD, because we would have, by this stage, we're just editing it all together, and we've already got our data, and the PhD being about trying to advance this model and say this model is real, this model is useful, and this is how you can use the model. I think we can do it in this way with all of the administration and stuff that's required. So let's just see if we can get a scholarship and a stipend and see how we can go. There's just two other things to talk through very quickly. The first is a confirmation of candidature draft that we're working on, and then just some things that we've seen on the internet, those open tabs and Notion. They're the two things. So let's talk through this. We've had this draft for a couple of weeks, and I've just been adding little sentences every other day. And here are three big things that happen in the COC. The first is that in our comments, the comments are drawn from what the COC assessors are marking on. So they have a sheet that they fill in and say, does this person answer the question of why this research should be undertaken, right? And I got to make sure that that's in there. So all of these kind of questions, I've taken them and then framed them as statements for headings, so that way they can just look at like how it will come together section and go, great. And then in the literature review, I've decided to do an integrative review, and I've still taken on board all the feedback of finding the top 10 authors and exploring both methods and then the state of the literature as it concerns elite performance in gaming. And there's three components: elite performance in gaming, the streaming and then the popular culture, right? So it's complicated. I made it too broad. But that is the case with PhDs. They get narrower and narrower and narrower. And the broadness is required in order for you to have that broad knowledge expertise, if that makes sense. Like if you were an astronaut scientist at NASA, it's like you might not know about moon rocks, but you'd be expected to be able to sit in on a moon rock talk and just be like, I kind of get it. So moon rocks, if it was on Earth, would they float? You know, and if someone was asked that, you'd be like, huh, found the person who's silly question. Or not. You know what I mean? You'd be able to tease that out properly. So yeah, we've just got it all here, the main areas. And the project timetable, this is where the COC the Gantt chart I showed you was going to go. Then I'm going to have the pictorial representation and then type it all out, budget and considerations and stuff. That's where I'm going to lobby the case to get my stipend, as well as getting all the supplementary things for the reapplication. Getting it would be huge because it would mean that I would never have to do anything for money that could be interpreted as being bought or having a conflict of interest. It's just quite literally, this person lives like a beggar and they just eat ramen, to prove the fact that, you know, they're not making Riot games in particular look like the ultimate esport. Or let's just say where is this thing here? Where is it? In this esports management capstone project, right, that we submitted, here are the esports that are currently considered for Olympic Games: archery, baseball, chess, chess.com, cycling, Just Dance, motorsport, Gran Turismo, sailing, virtual regatta, shooting, ISSF challenge featuring Fortnite, tennis clash, and then taekwondo, virtual taekwondo. What about if we look at this Riot Games new game? I can't remember what it was called. Yeah, Project L, right? 2XKO. It's a fighting game. Oh, apparently. So, what I'm getting at is, what if, like, in my PhD or whatever, I was like getting bulk subs from someone who just happened to be working at Riot Games or related to Riot Games, and it was like suggesting to me about, duo play, blah blah blah, great for esport, Olympic title, whatnot. It would just seem sus. It would just seem sus. But if you just arrived at this conclusion because you were received, no money ever changed hands, or this guy never subbed to you or whatever, you could just be like, I just independently and on my own volition think it's great. I actually think this game looks snazzy as heck. It's got that, it's like a more living and breathing Hades art style. But no idea what this actual is going to be like. So far, it seems very clean. It's definitely just conceptual. There's a lot of blah, 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 blah going on in the UI. Because it's got to be, like, watchable. I don't want to start digressing into what it's going to take to make this game great. From a experiential point of view of the viewer, the fan, and then all the different stratification of those stakeholders. Right, so with all of this said, that's pretty much everything except for what's in the Notion to discuss and what's in these tabs. So part of the reason why I want to show you what's in these tabs is because, oh look, we've got nothing up in here. We've got nothing up in here, isn't that crazy? But lots of stuff in week 8 where we had the ChatGPT conversation about the types of theories that could be considered appropriate, and then I asked it some questions and then it came back. My job is to go and prove or disprove what ChatGPT has said and to pick and find what the things are. I already knew. I can look at that and go, that all seems largely right to me, but I don't have a subsequent textbook by a world expert on sort of game studies research methods and sociological research methods that I can draw from to confirm that yet, but I shall. So what needs to go on this week 9 thing is actually related to the confirmation of candidature part at the top here, where I need to say basically the significance and which is going to be here. Of how we get good at video games and why it matters. Right, so here, I need to outline like everything that's going on in the world of video games and why video games are important, and why in particular it's important that people are good at them. Right, so I've got to actually go and do some research and a lot of reading from this point out to get the points that I need. Bear in mind the limitation is the word count of 7,000 words, and with that said, the broader, truest, expansive answer is going to find its way in the dissertation, but bear in mind the dissertation is 50,000 out of the 100,000 because we're creating an artifact. So the challenge then becomes a lot more nuanced in the artifact creation at the end in the 3rd year, to be able to say whatever it is that you're presenting, if it's a docu-series or a YouTube channel or whatever, it's got to be made evident when you're looking around that you can see this, again, the story of Rival Gaz and this person trying to be involved in the pursuit of understanding what elite gaming is, right? And so at some point, this stream is going to need to change to be more on the popular side, or at the very least engaging popular people. But we can't do any of this stuff until basically two factors are fulfilled. The first is we get more resources, and the reason for that is to compensate people for their time, or to at the very least be able to present myself in a way that will be compatible with their brand, right? And you can't do that without resources. Or you want to just do simply yet the best job that you can. And if I get no resources, then I'll find a way around it. I'm Rival Gaz, I'm Gary Lee. And the second thing is we need all ethical approval. So what's going to go on this week 9 thing that's related to the significance? Well, it's actually been something, speaking of popular and famous people, something that I haven't really been paying much attention to following in the esports scene. That's Moist Critical suing US immigration over the Apex Legend visa issues, right? And what it is, and I'm sure he can explain it more, and later on I'm going to have to, this is when we do all the reacts and stuff like that, you know, piece it all together to write this in greater detail. But basically what it is, in short, if I understand it correctly, there was a competition, all right, so elite players, they're going to go to America and play, and this guy's involved in making it so. But it didn't work out, and apparently, it says here, 2 of the 3 Australian players had their application denied, meaning that, once again, they could not enter the country to actually be present and play the game. And I read somewhere, but it could be fake news, that the reason for denying their applications or the visas or whatever was because the government felt that those Australians weren't like elite enough, I guess, or really true, or maybe I just saw the word lie in my AI subtitles. Maybe the government thought that they were lying about how great they are or whatever. So what's that? What does that mean for the significance of my research? Well, I can flat out say, thanks to, if we pull up my notes, right, my research and my PhD all goes through. My 5-factor model is basically saying, look, they're elite players. How do you know this? They play the game, right? They have the status in society. They are evidenced in the competition. They have the achievements, and here's the proof of this acquisition to this point. It's marvelous. But until then, guys, that's pretty much, I'm all talked out, and I can hear Ethel squealing at something, right? So I'm just going to go and see what she wants. And that's pretty much the PhD update for this week. It's been a good week. My chat said to me that you seem a lot more relaxed and a lot more happy with how things are going. And let me just say, like, I'm a couple of weeks post now from the flu that I had, and the whole situation with Tara and everything is a huge stress relief for me, because, like, as much as I wanted to work with a very impressive person like that, there's working with them, and at least the circumstances around it didn't seem that great. It was a challenge in and of itself. And my experience just unfortunately wasn't as good as what I felt it could have been. And so basically the changes that are going down and all the new things coming through mean that, like, I can still aim for the highest possible standard and be the very best that I can. But I'm going to be able to do it in a different kind of way. And doing it in a different kind of way, we still don't know exactly what that's going to be, but the possibility is what enthuses me, you know. But until then, guys, I'm just gonna hit stop recording. I'll let you astrally project into the stream. I'm gonna give Lady Gaz a call now, because I see that they're in chat and they want something, and check on the dogs. So please give me 5, and then we'll go and do some dives.